Wisdom. It's an incredibly valuable asset. Some would say more precious than gold. It's attractive, appealing, admirable. Conversely, a lack of wisdom is the basis of immaturity, blind spots, and bad decisions. Wisdom. It can be gained over time, but it can't be rushed. But wisdom can be shared. That's precisely what we are here to do right now. Today, we are here to hack wisdom, to distill it, to understand it, and to process it. Why? To get better at life. Welcome to The Main Thing. This is your new 9-minute podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg, and I've set out to interview the wisest people I know. We'll see what we can learn from each one when they're faced with an incredibly difficult, soul-piercing question. Welcome back to The Main Thing podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg. Here's a special warm welcome to my subscribers. Thank you. I also want to give a special shout out of gratitude to my patrons, those who support this show in a monetary way, and a special thank you to my latest patron, George. Thank you so much. Hey, want to keep up with us on social? Wonderful. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at The Main Thing Pod. That's the @ symbol, The Main Thing Pod, pod short for podcast. Don't worry, if you missed any of those details, you'll find it all in the show notes. My special guest today, Betsy Wills, is the co-founder of YouScience, a national online psychometric assessment service used by 25% of high schools in the United States. Since 2002, Betsy has consulted with individuals, corporations, and groups on personal and professional development. Betsy is a regular guest lecturer at Vanderbilt University and Tennessee State University, and she's been a featured speaker for TEDx Women. Betsy is a graduate of Vanderbilt University and holds a master's in education from Peabody College. She comes to us from Nashville, Tennessee. Now settle in and get ready. Over the next 9 minutes, you'll discover why Betsy Wills is one of the wisest people I know. Betsy Wills, welcome to The Main Thing podcast. It's so good to be with you today.
Great to see you, Skip.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Betsy, I just wanted to say thank you and tell you how much I enjoyed taking your YouScience assessment, the aptitude assessment. It was a real eye-opener for me.
I'm so glad. I find that there's sort of no downside in knowing more about yourself. So I'm thrilled when people grab onto that and get something to take away.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that you would tell us a little bit more about what it's designed to evaluate. And also in the context of that discussion, I would love it if you would tell us about your company, YouScience.
Sure. Well, the number one thing to know is that we didn't invent anything. What we did was we took a long, well-established assessment that has really been going since the 1920s that look at people's natural abilities or aptitudes. And we took it from a very expensive experience that was time-bound and location-bound, and brought it into the wonderful world of the internet and drove the price down to something everyone can afford.
Hey, let's help our listeners understand, Betsy, how you and I know one another.
Okay.
If you'd like to start that ball rolling, I'll come in and give it an additional shove once it gets rolling.
Okay. Well, Skip, we met through one of your other very powerful guests, Pat Headley, and she's the author of something called Meet 100 People.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic book. And when I became acquainted with her and then got to know her personally, I felt like I was meeting, a soulmate.
Pat is fabulous. She was on episode 21 of this show, and I speak to her probably 2 to 3 times a year. We stay in touch, and I consider her a mentor and a friend. And she's just, her show is one of the top 10 episodes of all time. So it tells you how popular her wisdom was and what a great job she did with that show.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Thank you, Pat. We really appreciate you. Betsy Wills, what's the main thing you've learned so far in your lifetime?
Skip, the main thing I've learned so far is that we derive more satisfaction in our lives if we spend it building rather than backfilling.
Oh, wow. We get satisfaction when we are in building mode rather than backfilling mode.
Yes.
Would you unpack that for us? I want to dig into this. It's a great thesis. Let's dig into it a bit.
Well, it really is maybe a fancier way of saying that much of our time and how we're taught growing up is that we need to get competence at certain levels of things. And the truth of the matter is we're going to find more satisfaction in doing things that innately come easily to us rather than those things that are an uphill battle.
Okay.
And
okay.
so when you understand yourself and what your natural abilities or innate abilities are, which we call aptitudes,
all right,
you're able to kind of give yourself permission to spend your time advancing and learning and driving towards those things that come easily to us versus always trying to keep up with the things that are less easy for us.
Okay, cool. We're going to be more satisfied and happier when we're doing those things that innately come easy to us. I can definitely relate to that.
Right. And I mean, the truth of the matter is, we all have to do things that are not easy for us in some of the time. But if we understand where we can be most effective and find the most satisfaction, just build our lives around those things more intentionally. One of the ways I explain it is if you think about what an aptitude is, and many people misunderstand that. They don't really, they think it's a personality factor like that you could find out with the Myers-Briggs or Enneagram.
Okay.
Or even StrengthsFinder.
Okay.
And the difference between aptitudes and these other kind of measurements for things is that you can't game an aptitude test. They are innate abilities that can be measured using sort of like you took little game-like test, but
right.
it doesn't look for your opinion. Like, oh, I'm very good at this. It's completely objective.
That's cool.
So think about if I asked you to write your name with your non-dominant hand. I don't know, are you left-handed or right-handed?
I am right-handed.
Okay, so if you right now wrote your name with your left hand, what would it feel like?
It would feel awkward, difficult. Yeah.
And it would take you more time.
It would, and it would be ugly.
And you'd also be exhausted if you had to do it 100 times, correct?
Sure.
But the truth is if you lost your right hand tragically in an accident and you were forced to use your left hand all the time, you would get better and better at writing your name and writing. So think about an aptitude that way. If you are using your dominant hand or that which comes naturally and easily to you, you get a faster rate of improvement all the time.
That's brilliant. I love the way you just set that up. I get it.
So aptitudes, there are actually 50 that have been identified over the last 80 years that they can measure.
Betsy, your wisdom. We're going to have more satisfaction when we're building rather than backfilling. When did this crystallize for you? What point in your life did you realize that this was wisdom truth and that you were going to embrace it? You were going to impart that wisdom to others. Do you remember an era or a time when that clicked for you?
Well, I think when I was about 30 years old, I realized my grandmother was 100 years old. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be around for at least 70 more years. So I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what I might want to do with that. And back to, Pat's 100 conversations. I mean, I did a lot of that. But when I understood by taking an aptitude assessment what my natural abilities were, I got a lot of clarity. And when I stopped having what I would call a tyranny of choice around, I could do anything. What can I do? There's a million ideas out there I could do, or, talking to all these people, I like all of it. Right. But it helped me eliminate those things that were going to feel like backfilling to me and to really focus in on all the opportunities I had to use my natural abilities and aptitudes in many different ways. Our expectations around our work need to be managed. It's not that we shouldn't be doing things that we love and do well, but we shouldn't put our job on the witness stand every single time we feel uncomfortable or a nagging sense that we're not fulfilling all of our expectations for ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I can't tell you how many times I've said that my job is not my identity. My identity is so much more than my job. What's the downside look like for someone who hasn't had that light bulb go off yet?
Well, I have seen so many people really go from being what I would call the walking dead to energized around their lives in general. And it is about understanding yourself first.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I feel like school, we march through high school, on to college towards this goal. And we don't spend a lot of time trying to understand what makes us unique.
So true. Yes.
You can spend a whole lot of your life sort of feeling like you're underwater.
Yeah.
And so that's unfortunate. And I see the power and the permanence of understanding what your natural abilities are and how that can wake you up to all the opportunities that are actually sitting right in front of you. And the chaos and spinning that we're living in right now of change makes obsolescence a threat. It makes so many challenges for all of us who thought there was some kind of permanence to our lives, when in fact, we really need to be steering our ship and keeping it on balance as much as we can by understanding ourselves first.
Great wisdom. Great wisdom. If you'd allow it, we'd be glad to share a link to YouScience, where folks can learn more and engage with you and perhaps become a customer if they're interested in aptitude assessments for themselves or their children.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would even go so far as to say the first 15 people who reach out, I'd be happy to go through personally their own assessment with them. It's not expensive to do that. To take the aptitude assessment, but it is expensive in that you're investing about 87 minutes of your time.
Okay.
To learn about yourself. But in a lifetime, that's nothing.
Yeah. Do you want to just go ahead and put out there what's a price range that folks, if they're intrigued?
Sure. You can purchase the YouScience assessment for $29 online at YouScience.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But again, if you want to reach out to me directly to go through your results, I'm happy to do that with a limited number, but I'm happy to do that for the first 15.
What a generous offer. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Betsy, thank you so much for your time today, for your infectious energy and the wisdom that you shared with us and our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Skip. And I'm enjoying your podcast, and I will be sharing it all over the place.
Wow, 9 minutes is up. That goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom. Let's be honest, it's not easy to ask for help or talk about money. Hey, it's Skip here, and many listeners like you continue to ask me, what do you need to continue to develop and build this show? Well, for context, it takes our team about 15 hours of work to produce each one of these packages of wisdom that we deliver to you in podcast form. Really, what we need as we enter season 3 of this show is funding to cover our costs. So in response, I formed a site on the Patreon platform where you can elect to become a supporting patron of the Main Thing podcast. Now, there are 3 levels you might consider, ranging from $6 to $27 per month. It's all safe and secure, and you can explore the options at patreon.com/themainthingpodcast. Now, how will we use the funding? Funds provided by you and other patrons will be used to defray the costs of production, promotion, and our recurring technology expenses each month. In short, you will be helping to keep this pipeline of wisdom flowing. Thanks.